maybe earlier in the career, I'm curious, on the mechanical background side, because I get this question, I want to say often for engineers looking to get into robotics or integration. And I know that both disciplines are equally as valuable. I guess my question is, what are your thoughts about going into, let's say, electrical versus mechanical? Did you have to maybe learn, or did you have a learning curve that was different than what you would expect on the electrical side? And what would you recommend ultimately for someone looking into integration and robotics in 23 to pursue as a degree, perhaps, or as an education?
hmm well, I'm going to be a little bit biased because I'm a mechanical engineer.
Hmm.
I was the kid that always took apart the alarm clock and the old TV, and my dad would come home horrified that I was taking apart a TV with a big capacitor on the back of it, and could have electrocuted myself and didn't know better. But I was an auto mechanic in college. I've just always been more mechanically inclined. Funny enough, my dad was an electrical engineer, so I picked up a little bit of the electrical side from
Interesting.
him. I had to take circuits class like anybody else, just one circuits class. But I've been dangerous enough with electronics, but there's never been that electrical guy. Now, some people will put programming under the electrical side. I've always kind of considered it to be almost a third class of, you've got mechanical, electrical, and then controls, programming. What I have found is interesting is that I would say out of all the programmers I've met, I would say a majority, over 60%, 70% even, have been mechanical engineers by
Really?
education. And I
Okay.
find that, and honestly, some of the best that I've met have been mechanical engineers. And I think part of that is maybe they understand what they need to program. Like, what is the mechanics? How does it need to move? How does it need to operate? Not taking anything away from any programmers who are electrical engineers. There's some amazing ones out there, but it's been interesting. And I've talked to a few other people, and they've had similar experiences with mechanical. I think it's interesting is that some colleges now are starting to offer more blended degrees. So it's electromechanical degrees, or automation, industrial automation sciences degrees, things like that, where both 2-year and 4-year degrees, where you get a mixture of both. And that, I think, would be very powerful. Somebody who's just looking to get into the industry, who hasn't even gone to school yet, or maybe going back to school, that I think could be a very powerful degree, because as we all know, especially at small automation companies, you got to be a jack of all trades. I've done lots of robot programming over my life, even though I'm a mechanical engineer, because I had to. I've even done a little bit of electrical design, when I'm not very proud of, but it did catch on fire. So I think I succeeded at this point, right?
No,
So
it's an interesting perspective. I certainly
yeah,
appreciate it. Like I said, I think engineers, how to say, like, ask that question a lot, right? And for me, it's more like I wish I knew more mechanical aspects so that I could be a better, I guess, like, programmer. And then for them, it's like, well, I wish I knew more programming so I could be a better, like,
sure.
automation engineer. But I think there's certainly a balance to some extent. But it's an interesting conversation point.
Yeah.
If I
And
if I can,
there's no reason you can't be, learning other skills too. Like
of course,
very early on, I took PLC programming classes just because I wanted to understand what the programmer was doing to my mechanical designs. I wanted to know how it worked. I knew I was never really going to be a PLC programmer, but it's helpful to be able to understand their constraints and what they can and can't do. So while you're designing the entire system, you're not making it more difficult to program maybe than it needs to be.